Alright, so in second grade, I received my first major concussion related to hockey, and so I went to the doctors, and they gave me Advil and told me to return to my normal life the next day. Now last year, I received my second major concussion due to hockey. This time, I missed school for 3 weeks, didn't do any sports, didn't take any tests or quizzes, and went to physical therapy for 3 months. So due to that, I set out to answer the question, what caused this dramatic shift in the way concussions are managed? And what I found is that before, no one really understood the true effects of what concussions can do to us. They always thought it was this minor injury that you took medicine for and it was over in a few days. However, recent studies have shown that, that were done on former athletes actually, that they can actually affect us for the rest of our lives. So, a concussion defined by a highly respected sports medicine doctor, Elizabeth Quinn, is typically caused by a severe head trauma where the brain moves violently within the skull so that the brain cells all fire at once. So, in down-to-earth terms, your brain smashes against the side of your skull. And as a result, long-term effects, if not dealt with properly, can actually result in long-term memory loss and depression, or CTE. And thanks to the evolution of this, hockey has taken huge steps on all levels in the regulation of equipment, new rules, and the recovery methods done after the concussion actually happened. So, as you can tell, before 1979, they were pretty crazy. There was no helmets in hockey. And it wasn't until 1954 when the first goalie, Jack Blount, wore a helmet, and it was only because he'd broken bones in his face and he risked permanent eye damage if he didn't wear a helmet. And it wasn't until 1959 that happened. In 1979, the first helmets were actually mandatory for players. And at the time, they were just mandatory, like there wasn't actually regulations, so these helmets were real cheap. You could actually change the formation of the helmet with your hands by yourself. And then it wasn't until 2000 when the new regulations were passed, thanks to the studies done on concussions, that they were actually regulated, that they had to have like nylon, rigid, and flexible material that actually absorbed the shock when you fell on the ice to help protect against the concussions. And to go along with helmets, shoulder pads have also increased a lot too. Before, shoulder pads, and this one right here, they were actually used to just keep warm. They weren't actually used for protection. And as a result, you had players flying around at high speeds, hitting each other with no form of protection to protect their spine, which actually can result in concussions from that too. So when these new pads were introduced, they actually had protection on where your spine is that help absorb the shock also, much like the helmets. So thanks to the new developments that we've had in concussions throughout the past couple of years, that's where the increases in equipment have changed. But also, there's also critics, because more concussions are being diagnosed than ever before, and they think it's because of this new equipment. They think that because of this safer and bigger equipment, players have formed this sense of recklessness. And that actually isn't the case, because in a book written by Mark Lowe, he's actually, his whole life is dedicated to sports concussion management. He talks about how more concussions are unreported and untreated, either due to athletes' unawareness of having the injury or intentional efforts to hide the injury in order to keep playing. So tests like these, this is called an impact test, these were developed to help diagnose concussions. So what happened is you take a test on verbal memory, visual memory, processing speed, and reaction time. So after you have concussion symptoms, you go back and take the test again. And that way they can tell what part of your brain is not is not functioning properly, and as a result they can actually prove what type of concussion you have, how major it is, and what you have to do to help it. And so thanks to the new form of concussion management, we have tests like these that diagnose more concussions than ever before. To go along with equipment, rules have also changed to help prevent these long-term illnesses. So before, hockey was all about hitting, it was all about fighting, and that's all people were interested in. So it wasn't until these new results came out that showed how serious concussions were that they actually changed the focus of the game to more speed, skill, and scoring. So thanks to that, there's no more hitting to the head, there's no more leaving your feet, there's no more hitting from behind. So as you can tell in these pictures, these players didn't end up very well, and it's all because of these illegal hits. And so, and also another rule that was diagnosed in the 1990s by the NHL was that every player had to go through pre and post-injury treatment. So before they took the impact test, and like I talked about before, so they went through, and tests that they had to go through were simple tests like you had to touch your fingers. If you couldn't do that, or you had to move your finger back and forth, and if you couldn't do that, it was simple, you couldn't play. And the Canadian press actually did an experiment on this to see how long it took to recover from a concussion, and it ranged from 0 to 342 days. It just shows that nowadays that we know the long-term effects of concussions, we actually see that it could take up to a year for us to actually handle the situation. A good example of this not being utilized was Chris Pronger of the Philadelphia Flyers. He took a puck to the face and suffered from a concussion. And as a result, doctors cleared him before he was actually cleared of the concussion. And a few weeks later, he suffered another concussion. And to this day, he suffers from post-concussion syndrome. He still has headaches, and he'll probably never step on the ice again as a professional athlete. So as you can tell, well, that was before, but as you can tell, concussion really has changed people's thinking on, or development has really changed people's thinking on what concussions are capable of today. Before, players were thought of like brutes. They didn't really care about headaches. They didn't care about nausea. They were just out there to win the game for the pride of their team. But now that we know what concussions can do and how serious they are, we've sort of changed our focus for the safety of the players today and for the future. And not thanks, but due to the mistakes in the past, that's where we are today with the development of concussions.